This is Donald Trump's comment on when he's asked by the New York Times about civil rights and how it resulted in white people being treated poorly. He said this. What is interesting is that is a fairly common refrain. It's a pervasive attitude that has existed for almost 60, 70 years. There has always, consistently, what has happened is white men feel as if something is happening to them. But if you look the actual data, income, education, virtually every metric you use, virtually none of it changed. Their money didn't change. Their education didn't change. As a matter of fact, some schools weren't even educated. Alabama only integrated in 1970 after Sam Bam Cunningham ran for 135 yards and he went, I got to give me some niggas. That's happened. Brigham Young, I don't think they integrated until 1978. We had busing in the 1980s. So even though civil rights started, it took decades before a lot of these things were even implemented. But the most pervasive thing is that a lot of white guys feel as something was taken from them. You got to look, the Dred Scott decision in the late 1850s said that a black man has no right which a white man is bound to respect. We have seen about 100 years of Jim Crow and separate but equal. We had a whole lot of separate but not a lot of equal. There used to be times in this country when white dudes wouldn't sell you vanilla ice cream. You couldn't even buy vanilla ice cream. Every black person you knew and grew up with, like Rocky Road, they like butter pecan, they like black walnut because they wouldn't sell them ice cream. You could tell people where to live. People couldn't look you in the eyes. They had to walk across the street. You could hang and like we have in the 60s during the Civil Rights Act. There were many acts of violence from children's being blown up in churches to leaders being assassinated to people being assaulted at lunch counters. And it's interesting, they chose the word civil. They didn't say Human Rights Act. They didn't say Equal Rights Act. They didn't say Superior Rights Act. They said civil. And civil is the lowest modicum of human interaction. It's when you do the bare minimum. I'm just going to be, if you hear people, they'll say, let's be civil. Can we at least be civil? You go to civil court. We had a civil war. But the act of civility is just human decency, human interaction. It's being civil. They didn't call it anything other than that. They didn't say, we want you to be equal to, we don't want you to be superior. It's not the Friendly Rights Act. It was called civil, the bare modicum of human interaction. And when people who used to be able to do whatever they want, anytime they wanted, with no consequences at all of a sudden, they had wars. People changed political party, a shift in a political party. They went from being Democrat to Republican in a single shift. Even Donald Trump in the 1970s was sued by the Civil Rights Department of the Justice Department because he refused to rent to black and brown people. And now a lot of white guys have this notion that something was taken away from them. But virtually nothing changed for them. Nothing. They didn't make less money. They weren't less educated. They didn't have less access. Nothing changed. We had wars, assassinations, lynchings, water hoses and dogs, and people being beat while they were marching. Because somebody had the temerity to ask white people to be civil. Not equal, not superior. We are in a fight. We fought, and right now reenact like kind of fraying at the edges because white people feel like something was taken away from them, that they lost something, that they were disadvantaged because there were laws that asked them to be nice.